Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 10-game Major League Baseball slate. I know it says 11, but the Kansas City game does not count today, so do keep that in mind. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Let's go ahead and get into this slate here. So pitching is pretty rough today. We're going to start with Peralta from Milwaukee. Now he's got good upside here. In 10 to 12 games, he's been over 10 at over 20 fantasy points, and he's got a solid matchup here versus Miami to take advantage of. I really like his upside. He's got a pretty decent earn run average and has good potential today. Serger for Texas is in play today. Since joining the Rangers, He's had 7 games, and 5 of those he was over 20 fantasy points. He's capable of a good game today, though he does face the tougher team of the expensive plays on the slate, so he is kind of a contrarian option today. Verlander is another contrarian option. Now, since he joined Houston 7 games ago, he's also had 4 games over 20 fantasy points. His ceiling is better than Scherzer today because of the matchup, but he's a little bit riskier because he hasn't been quite as consistent since joining his new team. But he's capable of a good game today. And then Wu for Seattle. He's facing the Angels, and he had 2 games this season versus the Angels already, where he's been over 17 fantasy points. Both those games were pretty solid. He's capable of doing that again here, especially if Otani sits. But he is high risk, high reward, as he's not the best pitcher by a stretch. But he is capable in this matchup. So, like I said, pitching's pretty rough. A lot of pitchers are in really bad shape today. Moving to catchers here. We'll start with Will Smith of the Dodgers. I really do like his upside today, though he has been inconsistent recently. He does need to hit a home run to pay off here, but he is capable of that today. He's got good the potential today for that. Then we'll look at Amaya for the Cubs. Now he is a boomer best play as he's home runner best kind of on this one because this game's in Colorado. He gets an advantage. Obviously, whoever starts at catcher for the Cubs will be in play today, but he is high risk due to the fact that he's not a great hitter. So at least so far in his career. Then we'll look at Garver for Texas, who is a core play for me. I think he draws great potential today for a home run. He's hitting the ball very well with a 357 average. He's averaging a lot of fantasy points per game recently, and he's got multi-hit potential, and he's even scoring fantasy points without getting hits, which he did yesterday where he had 10 fantasy points. So he does draw good metrics here in this game and has a great opportunity. Cody Ballinger is in play for the Cubs at first base. He's obviously available in the outfield as well. He is very expensive and needs a home run, but he is playing pretty well. He has home run potential today and has a great matchup in this particular situation. Pete Alonso also in play for the Mets. Now he's a little bit risky as he's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the year, but he's got a lot of home run upside. He's also had 4 home runs over the last 10 games, though he does need a home run to pay off here. But he's a little bit less expensive than he had been. Vlad Jr. is a good contrarian option off of Alonso, though he's been much more streaky recently. I do think Alonso is a much better option today, about the same price, but they both have good upside for a home run today, and he draws a good matchup. And then Abreu is a good value play today, kind of for a sneaky play. I think the Houston is a pretty good um, a good team to potentially stack today. He's had 3 home runs over the last 10 games. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the year, but he is hitting the ball pretty good recently, and that does give him some upside on the slate, especially with his home run potential. Then we'll look at second base, and Nico Horner is in play for the Cubs. Now he's been kind of streaky, but he does draw some stolen base potential. He didn't have a particularly good game yesterday where he only scored 33 fantasy points. He is high risk because he does need to hit a home run to pay off here, but he's capable of it today. Mookie Betts is probably a better option for the Dodgers today, as he's been really solid. He's back at hitting the ball well right now, and he had a couple games where he missed for injury, but he's seems like he's good to go. He hit a home run yesterday, so I don't think there's too much risk here. He's also just dominated San Diego for 14 fantasy points a game throughout the season, and I look for him to continue that today. Altuve also in play for Houston. He draws some really good metrics here, though he's had 6 home runs the last 10 games. But he is high risk, high reward because he's had some multi home run games. Otherwise, he's not doing as much, but he is still capable of a big game here. And then Estrada for San Francisco is a great option on the slate. He's hit the ball pretty well recently, averaging almost 9 fantasy points a game. And at his price point, he doesn't have to hit a home run or anything, but he is capable of it. He's had 3 straight 10 or more fantasy point games in a row. Moving to third base, we'll look at Jose Ramirez for Cleveland. He has been somewhat been robust throughout the season, but he does draw some good metrics for a home run today, and so he is a viable option. He's hit the ball really well with multiple multi-hit games lately, though he is very expensive and somewhat hard to roster. Ryan, let's see, Ryan McMahon is also in play for the Colorado Rockies today. Though he's been boomer bust throughout the season, he's better at home than on the road, which he's been on the road a lot the recent weeks. He is capable of a good game here, and he's got a good matchup from pitching perspective, though he has been kind of inconsistent recently. Madrigal for the Cubs is also in play. Now he's dirt cheap, and he doesn't need a lot to pay off here. If he draws a start, he'll be somebody to consider. Even though he's not got a whole lot of home run upside, he does have some stolen base potential, which gives him some utility. And then Duran for Texas, he draws some upside, and he can also be an outfield, though he has been boom or bust recently. He does have some home run upside, but he does need to hit the ball better really to pay off here. But he's been really solid against Toronto so far this season, so I look for him to have some opportunity today to have a good game. Maybe in a shortstop, we'll look at Swanson for the Cubs. Now he has been pretty good recently, hitting the ball 342. He's not hitting a ton of home runs, but he doesn't need to. He's got a lot of multi hit game potential, and I like his upside on the slate, though he is very expensive. Lindor is kind of a good contrarian play, as the Mets have some nice upside in this matchup. He's also hit 2 home runs and had a couple stolen bases the last few games, and he draws some good potential here, but he is a little risky due to his price. Pena for Houston is another good option on Houston. I think, like I said, Houston's kind of a sneaky play today. He's been hitting the ball very well. The fantasy points per game has been a little bit lacking, but he is capable of a big game here, and he does have home run potential on the slate. And then Tovar for Colorado is in play as he draws really good metrics here, though he is high risk, high reward, kind of a Hail Mary play at this position, and he does need to hit a home run to pay off. Moving outfielders, we'll look at Alvarez first for Houston. Obviously, he's super expensive, but he does need to hit home run. He has hit the ball really well with a 367 average over the last 10 games, and he's got lots of multi-hit potential and home run potential here. Then we'll look at Suzuki, who is a core play for me. He's hit the ball very well with a 410 average over the last 10 games. He only scored 3 fantasy points yesterday, but he's very capable of having a good game here and has home run potential on the slate. I think he's a great option here. Mookie Betts also in play at outfield, so you can use him here as well. Juan Soto, he has hit the ball very inconsistent throughout the season, but he had a really big game yesterday. I look for him to continue to try to have big games against the Dodgers, and he's hitting the ball pretty decent, so I think he's capable. He's had a lot of games versus the Dodgers, averaging 8 fantasy points a game as well, though he does need to hit a home run at this price point. Ian Happ is a little overpriced for this matchup, but he is capable of a good game here, though he's been inconsistent recently. He's kind of a contrarian play because his price is a little bit overpriced. It's just overpriced because he's in Colorado, though, so he is capable of a good game here, and he's hit the ball well most of the season. Tachman for the Cubs also in play. Now, he's not a huge home run threat most of the time, but he's got some good hitting potential, though he has been somewhat inconsistent recently. He does draw some upside on the slate, and he's nice and cheap. Toscar Hernandez is in play for Seattle. He's hit the ball very well recently with over a 300 average. He's really raised his upside, though he's had a few rough games recently. He's capable of a good game here, and he draws good fantasy point production on the slate. Ramon Laureano for Cleveland is a contrarian option today, kind of a Hail Mary play. He doesn't have a ton of upside, but he is capable of a big game occasionally, and the matchup metrics here are really good. He can have multi hits in certain situations, and this is one of the type of situations I like. Brandon Nemo has really hit the ball well throughout the season. He's hitting the ball pretty solid for power as well. He has some home run upside today, though he is high risk, high reward. He doesn't need a home run to pay off, but it definitely helps if he doesn't get a multi hit game. Then Dubon for Houston, finally, last but not least. He's kind of a Hail Mary play today. He's got home run potential on the slate, and he's hit the ball pretty decently recently, though he does have some inconsistencies on the fantasy point production side. If he draws a start, he'll be somebody to consider on the slate. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.